That is not loading for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and note for the record that this meeting can be held online due to the declared local public health emergency. And I will call roll. Obviously, we know who's here at this point, but if you could just say here when I call your name, so we have that for the record. Hunter Williams.
Here.
Melissa Berner.
Here.
Also, May, I think I'm getting some echo out of your device when it's unmuted. I don't know if anyone else is, but sorry about that. Billy Couric.
Here.
Ray Lockman.
Here.
Galen Mitchell.
Here.
Casey Pavis.
Here.
May Brooks.
Here.
And Davis Senseman, who is newly stepping into a seat.
Here.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And I know there may be a couple folks who are coming late, so they will jump in when they can, if possible. And Hunter, I will pass it back to you to take care of adopting the agenda and minutes.
Okay, yes, this is Hunter. All right, let me just pull up the agenda here. Just one moment. Okay, so now we need to move forward with the adoption of the agenda and last month's minutes. And so both of those things need to be, I'll actually do both of them. I think it's kind of easier to do that. So we need to accept the agenda and also accept the minutes for last month. Do you feel like you need to take a look at those things, or does anyone, if you do agree with them, want to move forward with accepting them and adopting them, then you can go ahead with your proposal.
This is Ray. Move to accept.
Who seconds?
This is Galen. I'll second.
Perfect. This is track. I'll call roll. It's kind of like a race to unmute with these, which I know is silly. But so again, just a yes if you're good with adopting. Hunter.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Billy.
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Galen.
Definitely. Yes.
Casey.
Yes.
May. And Davis.
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. There are 8 in favor, 1 abstaining, and 6 currently absent. Wonderful. The first thing on the agenda is I was giving some updates on past TEC recommendations and where those are moving. And as always, when I send out the minutes, I will link the relevant ordinances that are going on and stuff like that. Hunter, did you have anything you wanted to intro this with, or do you want me to just jump into it?
Oh no, I defer to you. Go right ahead.
Sweet. Okay. So I'm categorizing these as they are categorized. And I can actually screen share what I'm looking at right now, if that's helpful, so you all can follow along and don't have to only listen to me. I'll screen share it, and then Melissa and Hunter, let me know when you have each other repinned again, but so I don't start talking until you've got each other.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll let you know.
Perfect. Great. Okay, let me know when you're good.
Hold on one second here. Okay, I'm good. Well, Melissa's good. I shouldn't speak for Hunter. Hunter, are you set too? 1 second, Hunter's saying. Okay, we're set. Thank you so much.
Sweet, totally. So, in terms of your housing recommendations, the city has already passed some eviction protections they were working to get passed ahead of the potential end of the eviction moratorium, that require landlords to file evictions further in advance than they would have otherwise to give people more time to try to respond. Again, I have that ordinance linked. So that's the first piece. Tenant opportunity to purchase, which Katie Topinka, Topinka, from Community Planning and Economic Development, presented to you on a couple months ago, will come before the council next month. So that is moving forward, and I'll keep you all updated on how that goes. I know we've also talked about getting staff in community planning and economic development to build in more guidelines around trans equity in their grants with shelters, and that work is still in process. I will keep you updated, but it is moving forward. You all also made a recommendation around training landlords about discrimination. And some basic anti-discrimination content has been added to the only landlord training that exists right now, which is an optional landlord webinar. I am working with the housing inspectors and regulatory services to develop a more thorough webinar that's a deeper dive into like how do all forms of structural oppression show up in housing access, and how can you respond to and prevent them in the things that are in your power as a property owner. And we just ran through that webinar today, and they are getting ready to start moving forward with advertising and piloting it, which is really exciting. We are still in process on figuring out if there are ways to strengthen incentives or requirements for landlords around which of these trainings they have to take. And so that'll be kind of an ongoing step, but we do actually have some new content now. And lastly, one of your recommendations was around council passing the single room occupancy ordinance, which would provide another form of more affordable housing, and on encouraging gender neutral restrooms in the language of that ordinance, since single room occupancy housing has collective restrooms. And I've been told that there is some language around gender neutral restrooms in the text of the draft ordinance. I have not seen the text of the draft ordinance yet, so I can't confirm whether it's the language KC and I drafted for that, but I will let you know as soon as I get access to that. I'm gonna pause there. I just threw a lot at you in terms of housing. Does anyone have any questions?
And this is Melissa, the interpreter. If you don't mind just holding on 1 minute, we're going to switch interpreters with Coco. Thank you.
Great.
And Hunt is just looking for Coco now, so thanks for waiting.
No worries.
And Hunt is saying just doing some logistics with unpinning. All right, great, all set.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions on the housing updates?
This is Billy. I have a question about the single room occupancy ordinance coming before council next month. Is that something that is public facing? Is this something that the council is going to talk about amongst themselves? Is there a vote? Are we going to hear an update from this as early as next month? Or is this kind of just going to get a little bit more convoluted?
This is track. I'm going to answer as much of that question as I know the answers to. When I say coming before council, I mean in a council meeting, so that will be public facing. I don't know if there is a public hearing or anything like that associated with it. But there will be, I don't know if it'll be a vote to approve it or if it'll still be like a vote to send it back to some next step related to drafting. What I got was just in an email that it's coming before council next month, but that means it will be in a publicly viewable meeting with a vote, and at whatever point the agenda gets posted for that meeting, if I don't get access to the ordinance language beforehand, I will then have the ordinance language and be able to show it to you all. And if it makes it to council before the TEC meeting next month, then obviously I can also update you all on the vote. Did that answer your question?
This is Billy. Yes, thank you very much.
Totally.
And Hunter had something? Yes. So I was wondering if there's any disability commentary within the housing as well. Because when I was looking, I was wondering if there's something that could be ready. For example, for deaf individuals, would they have interpreters ready regarding the occupancy of housing? Is there anything along those lines?
This is track. Totally. Thank you for that, Hunter. So the single room occupancy ordinance, I had asked at your suggestion last month around language related to ADA compliance in that, and that I have never heard back on. However, what I can tell you is in the trainings we're writing for property owners, there is language in those trainings, both around like landlords cannot refuse to rent to people just because of a communication barrier, and around the importance of providing interpreters or finding another way to communicate. And also around the importance of complying with ADA requirements and like working with accommodation requests. So I have more to report in terms of the training for property owners than I do in terms of ordinances that are being written, but that's what I know about right now. Does that start to answer your question?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, that was all.
This track. Totally. Does anyone else have any questions on this? If not, I will move on to the next section. So I know you all had made recommendations around the charter amendment that would remove the requirement for the city to have a police department and replace it with a Department of Public Safety. The like community petition charter amendment that would do that has been presented to the city council. Actually, what I have written in these notes that I was going to send out as the minutes is not even the most updated. At this point, the city attorney has made a legal analysis of the proposed amendment and said that it is legally sound. I believe they still need to draft the ballot language, but that will be brought back to city council at some time next month to approve the drafted ballot language. So that is the update on where that is at. That is still moving on time through the process that would allow it to be on the ballot in November. In terms of updates around sex work decriminalization, my understanding is that Councilmember Gordon is planning to propose repealing the loitering ordinance, which would be one step in kind of the decriminalization process later this year. And so that is in progress. And as I get a clearer sense of timeline, and particularly the policy subcommittee has been talking about this actively, I, and specifically the policy subcommittee, can report back, but that work is also moving forward. And then the last update I have in this category, I know that you all had been following the city council's work to have someone other than the police respond to mental health crisis calls that were made to 911. And although the process is moving a bit behind the proposed timeline, it is moving. The city has at this point selected a mental health provider to be the organization that would be in charge of handling the staff who would respond to mental health crisis calls. They're working on finalizing the contract. Once that contract is finalized and negotiated and approved by council, then the name of that provider will be public. It is obviously not public until there is a contract that has gone through. And the goal, yeah,
Mrs.
sorry.
Hunter, darn, I wanted to know the name.
But my guess is even by the next TEC meeting, that'll be totally done. And their goal is a summer launch date. They need to finish the contract, and then that provider needs to hire a ton of staff so that they have the staffing capacity to do this. But the goal is sometime this summer that we will have launched as a city. 911 mental health crisis calls are set first to a mental health crisis team rather than MPD. And I will keep you updated on all of this. The Office of Performance and Innovation, which is coordinating this and some of the other like alternatives to MPD 911 work, is presenting updates on all of their pilot projects. So this and others, as well as on what was called the MPD staffing study, a study on whether MPD is using their staff time efficiently, later this month to the Council Public Health and Safety Subcommittee. So I will either watch or get notes from that meeting. And those are all public, so you are always welcome to watch them if you want to. They just are in the middle of the workday if you have a 9 to 5 job. But I will have more updates by next month's TEC meeting on where all of those pilots are.
And Hunter had a comment. I was wondering, once they've selected, then would they also include training about BIPOC individuals and transgender, gender nonconforming? Just having some kind of sensitivity training at least.
This is track. I'm trying to remember exactly what was in the request for proposals. I know that a lot of that kind of like sensitivity and competency was required for an organization to even be apply and be selected in the first place. I don't remember what specifically they require around training for staff, but I know that I know the policy subcommittee has looked in more detail at the language that was in the request for proposals, and I know a lot of that was in there. I can follow up and get a better sense. I can see if I can get a better sense on that because we are contracting with a provider to hire staff and provide that training. The city is not providing the training directly. But I will, don't mind me taking notes on my screen share. See if I can get a better answer to that question now that they have a provider and know more details of what that will look like.
Right.
This is tracked. Does anyone else have any questions on this section? If not, I will move on to the next two sections. They're much shorter, so I'm going to go through this together. So the recommendations around training, the only one I have a substantial update on right now is that just like we are working with staff in community planning and economic development around trans equity guidelines in their contracts with shelters, we are also working with staff in a number of departments on trans equity guidelines in their contracts with social service providers. And that includes required training for those providers that we're contracting with. Also working on figuring out what this will look like for our contracts with interpreters and translators, and getting them some trans competency training. So I will, again, continue to keep you all posted. Right now, it's still just a ton of meetings with a bunch of different folks figuring out the logistics of how to make that process run smoothly. But that is ongoing. And then in terms of recommendations related to bathrooms, I know that staff within community planning and economic development are still in conversation about how to encourage gender neutral bathroom construction, because by the time floor plans get to them, builders are pretty far along in the process. And so what's been said to me is they need a creative solution to be able to recommend things at a point when changes could be made. But the goal is to start by getting a handout on best practices on the city's website to encourage builders who are hopefully looking at the website earlier on. And then I do not have any updates on the just like two smaller recommendations that you all made around the role of appointed boards at the city. So that was a lot, but is the extent of my updates. Does anyone have any questions about these last few pieces? If not, I'm gonna stop screen sharing so I can see you all. And that is what I've got. The next thing on the agenda is subcommittee updates from the policy subcommittee. I personally don't remember who was planning on reporting back. I'm wondering if anyone does. I can also go looking for that.
This is since I wasn't there, so.
This is track. I was able to pull the minutes back up, so I can just summarize them real quickly. I would say the biggest things, the policy subcommittee dug a little more into all of these updates that I'm giving. But the biggest things were around the panic defense, since that bill did not get a hearing at the state this year, making sure that in the TEC recommendations next year are just like from the beginning, the city's intergovernmental relations lobbying team puts the panic defense on their legislative agenda rather than us scrambling to make it happen later on. And then we combined a bunch of words there, talked about starting what I was trying to say, to draft this year's round of TEC policy recommendations, with the goal of it being early enough that you all are presenting to council far in advance of council's November, December budget process, when they can be very hard to get a hold of, and when things may be too far along to make a ton of changes. So the policy subcommittee is going to start trying to think about potential recommendations. At the next meeting, I'm going to send them all a bunch of your past recommendations so folks can kind of take a look. I would say if there's anyone who's interested in stopping in for that meeting, even if you're not normally on policy, shoot me an email. I can send you the calendar invite. Please feel free. And Galen asked a great question around could we is there already a report on the best policies around trans and GNC equity that have been passed in different municipalities nationwide? I have started to go looking for one. I have not yet found one, which is unsurprising, but am starting to thank you for turning your camera on just for that response. But Galen made the recommendation of maybe the TEC recommends funding something like that, if it does not exist. And I am trying to pull together from a bunch of coworkers in different jurisdictions around the country who have similar roles. This is not comprehensive, but just the policies all of them are the most proud of, at least of the people I am on an email chain with. So I will hopefully be sending the policy subcommittee a couple things nationwide, even if not a full report on the best things that are out there. And I would just say, if anyone else knows of cool things you've heard of happening around the country out of government, or that have been funded by government in some form that you would want to see happen here, or want to go digging and Googling, please feel free to send them along, so that policy can take a look at all of that in the next meeting. And policy folks, I know I owe all of this to you soon, so that you have time to actually take a look at it before the next meeting. That's what I can think of for an update. Does anyone who's there have anything to add, or anyone have any questions?
It seems that there are none. So, all right. If you do think of something down later in the meeting, then go ahead and send a chat. to myself for track. That would be just fine. And hold on a second, my window was covered. All right. So now we have the update regarding the Office of Violence Prevention and our collaboration there. Track, did you have comments or did you want me to add something? You did just have comments, correct?
Yeah, I just have one quick update. Sorry, y'all. Today is a lot of me talking. But I know that we've talked. Are you all switching interpreters? Do you need me to pause?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, I was maybe early, but I saw Melissa pop up and I was like, oh,
Perfect.
this is my cue. But I know Hunter and Shore, who was on the TEC previously, met with the Office of Violence Prevention around the TEC helping shape a new staff role they're going to hire that's going to be doing, I believe, some like domestic violence response work. And they are still interested in TEC support there, but that process has just been slowed down and they're not even going to be starting to draft the staff role until later in the summer. So just wanted you all to know that that is still a thing. I'll keep you posted as there is a specific need. But everyone's swamped and things are moving slowly. This is all I've got there. And I can quickly give the trans issues work group updates too. That is essentially the work around trans equity requirements in contracts that I was already talking about. That's being taken care of mostly through the trans issues work group right now. So it is moving. We are working on tracking down all of the relevant contracts at the city that we want to apply this to, meeting with procurement to figure out how to institutionalize this in a long-term form. Yep, that's what I got. It's ongoing and it is still ongoing. We're not done yet. This is too big to be done yet. Unless anyone has any questions, Hunter, I will pass it to you to introduce the next thing on the agenda.
Sounds good. All right, this is Hunter. And let's see, where are we at? Oh, yes. So we've already discussed about the transitions work group and the updates, correct? So now we are moving on to the summit planning update. So who am I passing that to at that point?
This is track, I guess me again, actually, but it is a question for you all, finally. It's not just me talking. Hunter, this is making me miss you laughing at me in person. We'll get back there at some point. But Trans Equity Summit is going to be October 3rd and 4th. It is going to be a hybrid of in-person and virtual. We're still figuring out which pieces will have an in-person component and which will be solely virtual. Everything will have some virtual component for anyone who does not feel or is not able to go in person. But there will be a resource fair. In the past, the TEC has sometimes tabled at the resource fair to try to get folks plugged into the summit. And so wanted to check in with y'all if that's something you all would be interested in doing this year. My hope is that there would be an in-person version of the resource fair. There will also be at least just like a website listing of all the resources, if not a virtual reality version of the resource fair.
And I do want to add to that, this is Hunter speaking. I know there's a lot of people that are maybe feeling uncertain about being face-to-face and being in person, and I completely understand that, or maybe even feeling some nerves about the online version of it even. But I just want to make sure that you're aware that the resources will be great to have in person, but they will be limited to people who can get together, something like that. So I think for the summit planning, Track and I have been discussing other, one second, one moment. we've been talking about with Kenzie as well. So the three of us have been actually having this discussion. And so we do have, we could have the whole conference be in person, and then, or do the hybrid version, of course. And then we were also talking about, what's people's comfort level. And so I think that's one thing I was asking Track too. We were having this conversation about what that would look like. And I think, as far as the table is concerned, doing the tabling, I'm trying to remember. Track, correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 years, before COVID was around. I can't remember the exact date when that was, but did we have a table 2 years ago as well?
I am not 100% sure, honestly. I think you all, because you did the listening session, might not have also done a table. I don't know if you had enough people to do both. Which I guess is the other question here, is if there's any sort of workshop anyone would want to lead. I know we've talked a little bit about a panel on like ways to get involved that could be not just like what it's like to be on the TEC, but like how to join other appointed boards. Trans people can have opinions on more things than just trans equity. So I'll maybe ask the broader question of, does anyone have an interest in the TEC either presenting in some form or tabling in some form? And if you're like, yeah, I want us to be there, but I'm only comfortable tabling virtually, that is absolutely an option. You do not have to be comfortable being there in person for any of this to happen.
This is Billy. I would be happy to table in person. I think it's a good idea that we have both virtual, and if we can have enough people, maybe to do a staggered schedule at the table. If we don't have enough people all at once, I think that would be a great idea. But yeah, I think I'm all on board. I'd be happy to do that in person.
This is Melissa. I would also be happy to do in-person tabling at the summit too, to join up.
This is This is Hanta. I said Track. I think that sounds great. It sounds like we already have making some good progress here. Yeah, I think this is good thing. So if anyone else is interested too, that you want to be involved, please just let us know, and we'll make sure to kind of get that worked out. And what else? What kind of, what types of resources do you think should be included? Maybe some advertisements or campaigns, perhaps something to do obviously with the TEC, but maybe within the city of Minneapolis, that maybe people aren't even aware that there are some things that we have this fully, and so we could advertise more specifically what we are doing underneath the TEC. We could have some papers that they could take, some handouts or something, or perhaps online it could be some sort of, I don't know, what's that called, like a virtual, some kind of a PDF or something that we could share to, or something, a screen share of some sort. And to be honest with you, I think the TEC's website, I need to figure out how that works too, how the design works. But ultimately, I think, what kinds of resources do we want to have included? I think that's something we can think about. And maybe if we wanted to have a panel or a keynote or something, some kind of a presentation, I think we can, kind of brainstorm those options also. I remember 2 years ago, with last year happening, obviously that was all virtual, and it all worked out, it all came together, through technology. It was great. We had a lot of people. And Track, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we had more people than we had 2 years ago when we were face to face? Oh no. Okay. I just want to make sure. So, yeah, there's too many things going on last year. It's hard to remember, quite frankly. But yeah, I think that, maybe if we did have a panel discussion, or a listening session to, maybe that's better than having a speaker, or maybe we could have a few speakers or something, to a special guest that we could do for the general group too, that could include us. So I don't know. I think it'd be nice to have something. And I just want to we can throw out ideas. I'm happy to brainstorm with you all too. I would like to see more BIPOC individuals. I think that would be really essential, and also with people also that include people with disabilities, people that are deaf, people that are blind. Any kind of. I think we need to have more representation in that way. I think that would be really significant, especially representation of BIPOC individuals with disabilities. That's just my suggestion to throw out there.
This is Billy Hunta. I think that's a great idea. I have not been to a summit, so forgive me if I'm going to be asking any silly questions. But are there, we also have people, is it from the Family Tree Clinic? I can't recall the name. We have a few folks who come in and frequent the TEC from there. I'm wondering if we can reach out to them to see if they would have anybody be interested in holding a keynote or speaking, because they have some familiarity with the TEC. And then, are there any council members who attend the summit, or have they in the past?
This is track, not dumb questions at all. Family Tree is definitely going to table at the resource fair. I can also reach out. I think some of their staff have already ended up on our list of potential speakers, actually. The Summit Planning Committee brainstormed the list. So I think we've already got some of their staff on that list. And historically, CVP Jenkins and Councilmember Cunningham have both. CVP Jenkins always speaks a little at the opening, and Councilmember Cunningham speaks at the closing, and they've both been there. I think sometimes other council members are there for a bit. I remember running into Steve Fletcher at lunch 2 years ago, which does not mean he's the only one who has come. That's just that's what I can pick up in my memory right now. And we put it on the council calendar so that folks are aware of it, but it has been a mix of, I don't think we've ever had the whole council there by any means.
This is Billy. Thank you. I think even having a few council members would be really cool. Just to have, because I feel like most people don't interact with their council members or council members in general. And I think that if we were, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think we talked about it earlier about having potentially a presentation on just civic engagement. And I think that that's kind of hard to do without seeing where you'll go and who you're reaching out to. So if we can get a council member to maybe stick around or ask or answer questions, something like that, I think that would be very helpful.
And this is Hunta speaking. One thought that I want to just throw out there. It's kind of funny because, just bringing up, when I, as a co-chair, and Kenzie, we have talked about presenting with the TEC, and we, brought up that idea, and we talked with Track about it because I want to make sure that the TEC, that we as the TEC, that we're able to provide, more information to people too. Like I just mentioned before, like Billy just mentioned, even making sure that people can actually see that there is that visibility there. They can see us as the TEC, and because I feel like sometimes the TEC as a whole, we have this large city, and then we have, underneath that is the TEC, and I think sometimes we are doing a lot of work, but I think we need more of where people can actually see us represented to provide that information, to show them that we're doing the work and that we, we're not just having this discussion for nothing, but we've already been successful with some of these things. We've already been working on specific items. And so I think, for example, during the last 2 years, we've fought and for certain things. We've fought for having a staff person for the TEC, and I remember going for a long time. I would see a lot of turnover within the TEC. And so now we wanted to make sure to have a permanent position now for the staff person. And so we've been successful with that. And I think we can show these kind of successful items. And I think that's a way that we can actually recruit more people to be involved when they see the work that we've been doing. Track, do you want to add anything to that or correct anything that I might have said?
This is Track. I don't think so. I think that all makes sense. And I agree that you all both being there at the resource fair for folks to learn more about your work and also maybe holding some sort of training or panel on civic engagement that has what Billy said about like people getting to connect with council members, understanding the TEC. Sounds awesome. I think I have a question based on Hunter, what you said about like what handouts and resources do we want to have for people at the table? I know that there are various groups who have come and presented to the TEC recently that you all have given feedback to. Like Minneapolis Employment and Training last month was looking for a list of LGBTQ competent employers so that as queer and trans folks are participating in their employment and training programs, they can like get connected to employers that will be affirming. And I'm wondering if there's any like information or feedback collecting you would want to do even at your resource fair table of like, do people have employers to add to this list? Or are there other types of either like other city departments who have come for feedback from you that you want to come to your resource table and ask people, or just like you want to pass on their questions? But I think that could be another part of what's going on at that table if you all want. And I'm curious how that feels and how you would want to do that.
Davis, did you have your hand up? Did you want to say something? Oh, that's okay. That's fine. No worries.
Well, actually, this is Davis. I was just thinking about, so I work with the city on through their BTAP program and their CTAP program, where they work to provide technical assistance to businesses and co-ops. And I've recently worked with a number of trans and GNC folks who are starting businesses so that they can use those services. And it really was only through personal connections because, you know, the folks I worked with, many folks who are starting businesses or doing something on their own just don't know about those services. And so I feel like this would also be, I love that idea Track of like gathering information from people and then also like letting them know like here are all these different things that like you as someone who, you know, either is trans or gender nonconforming or supports this community should know that the city like the different ways you can make the city work for you, I guess, for lack of a better, there's a shorter way to say that. But I'd be happy to do some of the tabling and also like talk to folks about that, about like, hey, here's how you can get the city to help pay for you going out doing this thing on your own.
This is Hunter. That's great. That's a perfect point.
This is Trek. Davis, I love that. And I'm also in contact with one of the city staff on the small business team to see if they want to like bring in a bunch of their providers to table at the resource fair. So whether this happens in combination with the TEC or separately, definitely on my radar. And Billy, Davis, and Melissa, as the people who volunteered to table so far, is it okay if I put your names as the contact info for tabling? There's just going to be a couple emails that go out with like, confirm exactly what time and stuff like that. And I think it may make more sense for them to go directly to one or all of you than be going through me.
This is Billy. That's totally fine.
And this is Hunter speaking. All right. Track, were we done here? Okay. So
This is track. Actually, Hunter, I'm just going to say one more thing. Which is just that I love this civic engagement panel idea. And we are going to have the actual like call for workshops form where you can propose a workshop up really hopefully within the next month, if not before that. And if it feels okay, I can just, and like who on here has energy around proposing that workshop? Who should I send it to? Or should I send it to everybody? I just know that when things get sent to 10 people, nobody quite knows if they're the one to raise their hand. But I see at least Billy's hand.
this is Hunter, and for presenting, yes. Workshops, I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, this is track, no worries. Billy, are you good if I send it to you as a start? And we can maybe talk through like if it's more of a panel, like who else you can bring in who can be a support on it.
This is Billy. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. This is Hunter. Awesome. All right. Now for Pride, we do have this outreach opportunity. And Track, are you planning to handle that? Of course, right?
Yep, this is track. So again, the question for you all is we have an opportunity to have a table at Pride that's just the TEC and the Trans Equity Summit. So you're not going to be with a whole bunch of other city tables the way it was 2 years ago, if any of you all were there for that. But there will be a table by the Power to the People stage that will just be TEC and Summit. And so I guess my question for you all is, once again, like, would folks be interested in tabling? Would you want to like bring in any of these questions from outside presenters, like Minneapolis Employment and Training's question about LGBTQ competent employers, or anything else that you want feedback on? And Hunter and I had talked briefly about like, did you all want to have some sort of survey at the table, getting a sense from folks of more of what they want to see the TEC doing? So like, would you want a table? What would you want to use the table for? Is the summary of that.
This is Billy again. I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm so sorry. I would love to table at Pride. My question would be, is
And
there
Billy,
like
talk as much as you like, Hunter's saying, please.
I don't like talking all the time, but yeah, I'd love to table at Pride. Is there an email list that we can put folks on? If I don't know, we don't do like a newsletter, but is there something that we can send people who are like a sign up or something at the table?
This is track, totally. So the two things that exist and that I tend to put things on when put folks on when they're interested in the trans equity work, I've put them on our race equity newsletter, which has kind of all of our division stuff. And then I usually remember when we publish a TEC agenda to send it out through what's called our Gov Delivery newsletter. It is not like an exciting newsletter. It's basically just a thing that says like, our next agenda is up, but I will also throw into that a couple other like, and also this thing's going on if you want to get involved. And so we can definitely get people signed up for those two things. And if there's anyone, and that's also like, we'll send out to both of those, like when there are open seats on the TEC, if people want to apply and stuff like that.
Okay, this is Billy again. Great. What materials will be available at the table, or do we have an idea of what we would like to have at the table currently, or is that something that we're brainstorming right now?
This is track, brainstorm it right now. We have like we made something 2 years ago that described a little bit of what the TEC was that I could dig back up and we could reuse in some form. There will definitely be summit flyers. But it is really up to you all what you want to have at the table.
Yeah, and this is Galen. I feel like this is my question. I would love to do something like this and like table, but then I wonder what it is that I am trying to accomplish by doing it. And right now, maybe there's even worth in just being like, "Hi there, I'm a trans. Like, nice to meet you. We're the Trans Equity Council." Like, I mean, maybe that itself is like worth it, you know, just to be visible in the community and for people to know that we exist, these other sorts of things, as like as a group that they could potentially talk to you know, push ideas that they have for improvements, et cetera, since we have a little bit of leverage in that regard. But I really wonder, what is it that's going to make people want to talk to us? And, you know, what can we do with it? And I'm kind of coming up with blanks outside of just like that general presence idea.
Is to actually attract more BIPOC individuals, you know. And we also need to recognize how much no offense, but, you know, there's a large number of white individuals. And so, yes, to have a better balance of having more BIPOC individuals and to try and get, part of it would be letting people know of how we can help them, as well as individuals with disabilities. And so including people with disabilities often struggle to feel included because there's no accommodations, et cetera, but we do provide that. So those would be some of my goals, is to expand the TEC and having a support network as well, working towards our goals all together. So those are some of the things that I'm interested in, is attracting other individuals to be involved.
This is track.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Those are some of the things I'm thinking. Oh, also, I wanted to ask you, Track. I'm wondering, can the TEC provide things like bags, you know, like things, what are they called? You know, like little notebooks, pens, something to give away. You know, what is that called?
Swag.
Yes, that. Exactly.
This is track. I'm going to answer Galen, and then I'm going to answer that. Galen, I really appreciate that question, and Hunter, I appreciate your answer. I think what I learned from tabling 2 years ago is a lot of people have no idea the TEC exists. So both in terms of like getting people to reach out to the TEC with things they want to see happen, like you said, getting more applicants, like Hunter, you said, and yeah, just like having people understand what's out there. Like most of our experience of tabling 2 years ago was people being like, this exists. I will also say that like, actually what you said was very correct in that there weren't that many things at Pride, at least in the part of the fair we were in last year, that were explicitly trans and not LGBTQ. And so the fact that we just had like a trans flag going on the table meant that we just got a lot of folks who were like, wait, a specifically trans thing? Tell me more, which is more of just a like representation, look, I'm here, than anything else. But I did not expect that. So I share that. And I think we did some like feedback collecting on what our priorities should be and email sign up stuff 2 years ago as well. So those are things that could be goals. And Hunter, yes, I don't think we really have budget, so I don't think it'll be exciting swag, but I can definitely rustle up like a bunch of city pens and some candy and random shit, at the very least.
One of the things, Track, that what you're saying made me think of is I'm not actually aware of a easy way for people to get in contact with us and share ideas, other than like surfing through like random city websites and going down the rabbit hole, these other sorts of things. I don't know if we have a Facebook group or like any social media accounts, or anything like that. And so if we have those things, maybe that would be part of the materials that we bring to the table. It's like, or maybe we decide to create them and actually do something with them if we don't have them. And that be like part of the goal is getting people connected with us, and being visible outside of the table as well.
This is Track. I love that. I have to be that person. I don't think appointed boards are allowed to have social media accounts. I can double check on that, but I'm guessing that's no. So I want to put that out there as a warning right away. But I would say if there are ways, even if it's like you want people to reach out to like the race equity at minneapolismn.gov email address, and I can always forward things to you all. Like, we don't have the easiest ways. The race equity Facebook page. None of these are the best, but if you can't, but you want to be advertising a way people can reach out, I'm happy to brainstorm with you, like, of the things that are available, how to make them something you can advertise and something that's getting to you as immediately as possible.
It's a real bummer. In Denver, we had social media accounts, but cities, grr.
And Hunter was saying, Galen, definitely that I agree with you. I love what you have brought up, and we've brought it up many times, but it seems that the city of Minneapolis is very clear. And so I'm not going to argue about that. Another point, Track, I apologize. I'm going to tell you very directly, the city of Minneapolis website for the TEC is horrible. It's not an easy track. It's not an easy path to find it, etc. It's so confusing. And so I do hope that could be fixed before we do table at Pride. But then I don't know if there's something that we can do, maybe a card or something to give to people at the table. I don't know, something. My point being that a lot of people are not aware of the TEC, really. And so I think that's something that if we could maybe fix the website, maybe possible.
This is Track. Appointed boards are not able to have websites outside of their like LIMS, Legislative Information Management System websites. Galen, your face. I know. The city is converting to a new website. Hunter, I don't know how recently you've looked. The race equity one's definitely not exciting because we didn't have a bunch of capacity to do it, but it is better than the old one was. I will say that. We can definitely, if you all want to have a QR code to any parts of the trans equity work on the website or to the TEC website specifically, we can put that on any pamphlets you all have. And we can also, like, IT can do shortened URL redirects, so we don't have to give people a super long URL to go to. So yeah, not the most helpful, but if there are specific things that you would want, within what we're stuck in, and I will ask about social media, if you want to advertise like a way people can get in touch with you, even if it's not the most direct way. If you all want to have more TEC related stuff posted on the Race Equity Facebook page, I'm an admin of it. Like, I can put what you want on there. Just let me know what you want. We don't have a giant following, but we can definitely use it. And you can all follow it if you don't already, and invite your friends to follow it, which also helps. So happy to figure out within what we can do the best ways to advertise it. I know we don't have all the options that would be ideal.
And this is Hunter, because many times that I've given friends information, they don't know where to actually look for it. And so it just feels like if we could get that part fixed and a little more clear, then it'd be easier to find, because the city of Minneapolis is so convoluted. And so finding even the race equity one, like it's difficult to find it. So, but yeah, that's just my 2 cents. And then also, if people want to call, I mean, myself being deaf, no, but by watching people's body language, I can see I'm trying to get through to the city and I'm being transferred around, and if they feel it's not really worth their time. So that is just a couple of things that I think if we could fix before we table, then that'd be great. And I wanted to ask, what kinds of materials could we provide? Is it going to be paper documents? Is it going to be iPad so that people can register their emails there, or what? Or for surveys, what kind of formats would we be using? Also, would we have an umbrella because it might still be sunny?
This is track. So paper documents, definitely, if you want. We can probably get a couple devices out there for people to, yep, thank you, Melissa. We can get devices out there if you all have stuff you want people to fill out online. I'm going to ask about tents. We were under tents 2 years ago, but I don't know if they were ours. I mean, at the very least, I'm sure I could like source some umbrellas. But I'm going to try to figure out if we can get something better than that. We might even be in the power to the people tent. So I will find that out. But I think my question for you all is what resources do you want to have out there? I heard like a little information about what the TEC is and how to get connected to it and how to apply. And I heard a survey. I'm curious if I'm missing things, and I'm curious if anyone would want to take the lead if I sent you what already exists on starting to like pull some of that together. May, was that a hand or a stretch? A stretch. Great. Okay.
This is Billy. Can we maybe send out like some sort of Google document and like throw resources in there about what like we could have at the table? I think the survey is great. I think like a sign up for those other newsletters would be helpful, or just like to have someone drop like an email. Is it okay to give a schedule of future meetings as a handout? Is that okay? And then also, yeah, because we're still virtual, giving the phone number and explaining to people how they can call in if they would like to jump on a meeting. I think that's important too.
This is track.
I had a resounding yes as well for the meeting schedule.
Yeah, this is track. I can send out a Google Doc and I'll throw in that like the stuff that I already have, and then you all can add. Is there anyone who would be willing to be a point person on being like, either like, okay, this is done, I'm going to turn it into a flyer, or okay, this is done, track, will you turn it into a flyer? But just kind of making the call on like when we have all of that. Really amazing, thank you. Similarly, is there anyone
And I'm
who
sorry,
wants...
track, was that Billy, did you say? I just
That was
missed the
Billy,
name.
yes.
Billy.
And I figure we can start brainstorming survey questions in that Google Doc as well. I'm going to try to send it as a SharePoint doc. If folks can't get on,
Awesome.
yeah, we'll do something else.
Fantastic. And so we'll keep that conversation going online. And then I'm very excited about that. Is there any more questions or input about that pride tabling, or shall we move on?
Oh, this is Track. I'm gonna say one thing I forgot to say at the very beginning, which is the Pride Festival with tabling this year is in July. I think to move it back past like the governor's reopening timeline, it's July 17th to 18th. So closer to that date, I'll send up a sign up for people to actually take shifts at the table. But just so folks have a sense of timeline, it is not the last weekend in June, even though there's other like smaller events that are the last weekend in June.
And Track, this is Hunter. Do we know the times of the day?
Vaguely all day.
Okay.
Okay, this is Hunta. All that sounds great. Any last comments that people want to add about that? Track, anything you forgot? Or can we put the updates at all? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Moving on. All right, so the next on our agenda is related to the next steps for Minneapolis employment and training programming. And again, Track, take it away.
Oh, and thank you, Melissa, for putting the Pride hours in the chat. So I followed up with Tammy, who presented to you all last month, to see if there was anything else she needed right now other than a list of LGBTQ competent employers to send participants in their programming to. There's nothing else she's looking for right now, but definitely still looking to flesh out that list as much as possible. So Hunter and Kenzie and I decided it would make sense to take a little time in today's meeting to just see if anyone had any employers that they thought of that they wanted to add to the list. Could be super big corporations, could be tiny organizations, but anyone that you would want to make sure Minneapolis Employment and Training is connecting to.
This is Davis. I probably have a number of names that I could add to that list. I can just email them to you, Track.
Awesome. If you are willing to, that would be great. Thank you. Does anyone else have either any immediate thoughts or a long list they want to email me?
If not, we can certainly move on to the next item on the agenda. I know we were talking, the next item would be priorities for upcoming presentations. And again, who is going to take the floor? Track.
This is Track. So Hunter and Kenzie and I were talking about, I've brought in a couple different presenters from different either city departments or outside organizations to the TEC, either because I found out about something they were doing that was relevant, or because they reached out to me, but wanted to take some time with you all and be like, what do you want to know about that's going on within the city? Who do you want to hear about their department's work? Who do you want to give feedback to? Or other jurisdictions, like if there's park board stuff that you would want, like May to bring in park board folks about, or May to let me know who are the best park board folks to bring in or something like that. So wanted to take a little bit of time to brainstorm what you all want to feel more informed about so that you can either give them immediate feedback or give council feedback about their work.
I think it'd be great to have lobbyists involved. The reason being that I think that's a key part of the process when we think about some of the work. I feel like lobbyists really, what's the word here? How do I put this in? It's hard to explain, I guess, but.
Hunter, can I ask
I was going to say, are you thinking about lobbyists in terms of like informing where the process goes or policy goes? Is that what you were thinking about?
Yeah, exactly.
And Hunter, this is track clarification point for you. Are you talking about like the city's intergovernmental relations department, which lobbies for state policy, or are you talking about people outside of the city who lobby for city policy?
Could it be both? I don't know.
I mean, in concept, yes. I think I need more specific. If there's like people outside the city who are lobbying city council who you want to talk to, I think I need more specifics of who to reach out to. But that's like, if you have thoughts on specifics on that, go for it. And I can totally bring in intergovernmental relations to talk about their work at the state.
Track and Hunter, I would say there are two ways maybe you want to approach it. This is just something to think about. I think it's one thing to talk about it from the business standpoint of it when you go to lobbyists, because I know the city does indeed pay for lobbyists. The other thing is, if you knew another outside organization who probably has a lobbyist, like the human rights campaign people, I know they have really good lobbyists, and they might be willing to work with us to bring somebody in or have someone come in and talk about how they did it or how they're doing things around lobbying efforts. I don't know if that's what you had in mind or not.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think you read my mind. Wow. If I think of anything else, though, I'll definitely email you, Track. And if anybody else has any ideas, certainly throw them out there.
This is Billy. Would like to learn more about Park Board. If we can get someone maybe to do a presentation on Park Board, I'm not too familiar. And then also would be really interested if we could work out maybe a presentation from like a Native organization or a tribal organization in the Twin Cities. I know that's a very underrepresented population that I think we would benefit from learning more about or getting more involved with.
Definitely, definitely.
This is Track. May I can connect with you about what might make sense for Park Board at some point, if there are folks you think who might want to present something. Does anyone else have other groups, internal or external, that they would want to hear from? Or if there's anyone who's presented before that you want to hear updates on their work, like we can absolutely bring folks back in as well.
This is Hunta again, and I would like to connect with specific BIPOC individuals, but specifically Black individuals, about who are really, working to kind of defend trans folks too, especially when you think about when a person is pulled over, what kind of protections are involved, like how do we protect us in that way, and I think just having some kind of guidance there, I think would be really great. I feel like, I mean, yes, we could start something like that, but it's not really assured. I think that I feel like it'd be nice to be able to actually have someone come in and talk about something like that. But what protections there are for Black trans people specifically.
This is track. Hunter, are you talking? I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Are you talking about more of like a like know your rights type content, or like folks that are like trying to push for some sort of policy related to that would want to present to you all about the policy they're working on? I like the idea sounds great, but I'm not total I want to get a better sense of what we're looking for so I can hopefully figure out how to find what you're actually saying.
I think more related with, you know, the policy, because the policy right now, there isn't a policy really. So I think, how do we actually get something in place, get a policy in place to provide protections? I think. I know there are many youth, you know, young trans people of color, and there's no resources. You know, what are the rights? What they don't have any awareness of what their rights are, and so I think it'd be great if we could learn more about that. Yeah. Well, and it's hard really for me too, because I feel like to try to explain exactly, I think my thoughts here, I'm noticing that notice there's kind of some gaps in information when it comes to BIPOC individuals, specifically Black individuals, when it comes to police and policies. You know, what are the rights that people have, and like what are they actually? What are all the policies that are in place right now that people have for the rights that they do indeed have when they're being pulled over? I think my brain's a little bit slow tonight, so you'll have to forgive me.
I have a tangential question. This is May. What's the average age of the participant in the summit, approximately?
This is track. I don't know if we've mapped that. I'm gonna take a like real guess and say 30s maybe. Like it is age diverse. There are, as in many trans spaces, fewer elders than there are younger folks. Yeah, we have some data, but I don't think we've ever really mapped it out.
The only reason I'm asking the question is I was thinking along the lines of, if this is something that maybe instead of doing the broad brush, maybe what you do is have a specific workshop given by someone or an agency that has done work around trans youth. And that might be something that would almost be like a marketing issue, because if that's an audience that we've not looked at before or really had something really segmented for them, that might be a better way to do it, as opposed to trying to do a broad brush stroke, is to really just focus in. And then everybody knows the product that they're getting. And it will be easier to get that specific product. Just a thought.
I like it. This is Hunta speaking. Yeah, I like that.
This is Billy. Is this something that the Family Tree Clinic could potentially help us map out? Working with younger a younger demographic and maybe kind of tailoring that workshop like they saying.
This is track. I can ask. I also know that I've been in contact. Well, Casey and I are both in contact with the staff who coordinates Minneapolis Public Schools queer and trans programming about how to get youth more plugged in. And we have one youth on the summit planning committee. So we have a couple folks in different capacities thinking about this, but I don't know if Family Tree does any like know your rights specific content. And if they did, that could be one resource.
This is Davis. The Minnesota ACLU might be another good resource because they have both a kind of know your rights while driving project, and then they also have their LGBTQ rights project.
Well, this is May. I just went to the Employment Law Institute. 2 days of exhausting, excruciating detail about laws. And so I will see if there were any sessions on transgender rights and who those people, who the presenters were. I have to double check that. I know there was discussion about in general, but I don't know if there was anything specific around transgender rights. So I will look that up.
Thanks, May. This is track. I feel like at this point we're brainstorming both summit presentations and presenters you want to bring into the TEC, which is great, but does anyone have anything more they would throw on the list for either of those? I can also pull up a city org chart quickly if it's useful to just like see what's out there.
Any thoughts, anybody? This is Hunter. And of course, if you have any, you can send an email to if you have additional ideas. I know the website itself is kind of hard to find. I know, but it doesn't seem like there's any other ideas at the moment. So maybe we have plenty of time. It's almost about 6, it's 6:37, about 2. So I guess, we could close now. How are you all feeling? Want to continue, or do we want to actually adjourn?
Oh, I can't believe y'all are this quiet. I'm all for adjourning. You know me. This is May.
This is Billy.
Life is short. Life is short, and summer is even shorter. So, hey, if we ain't got nothing else, I can move on.
I love it. That's great. All right, that sounds good. Perfect. Okay, well then we'll see each other next month then. We can wrap it up.
Sounds great.
Thank you all, everyone. Have a great night. Take care of yourself.